You're not dying. Mom spoiled you with this asthma thing. Get up. I was on the floor of my sister's luxury apartment, clawing at the hardwood with trembling fingers. My chest felt like someone had wrapped steel cables around my ribs and was pulling them tighter with every failed breath. The cleaning spray she'd used hung thick in the air, burning my lungs, triggering the worst asthma attack I'd had in years. I'd told her 100 times that aerosol cleaners set my respiratory system into chaos. She knew. She'd always known. My inhaler sat on the marble counter just 5 feet away, but it might as well have been miles. My vision blurred at the edges as I managed to choke out her name. Brielle, please. I can't breathe. She stood in the doorway of the kitchen, arms folded across her chest, her expression completely blank. Not worried, not alarmed, just irritated, like I was interrupting her day with my dramatics. You're not dying, she said, her voice flat and cold. Mom spoiled you with this asthma thing. Get up. She didn't move toward me, didn't reach for my inhaler. She just stood there, watching me suffocate on her expensive hardwood floor. Then she turned and walked away. Actually walked away. My fingers scraped uselessly against the wood as my lungs screamed for air. The edges of my vision started tumbling into darkness. I was going to die here, in her apartment, while she pretended I was faking. The front door opened. I heard it through the ringing in my ears, heard the startled gasp, the footsteps rushing toward me. My best friend Maya had come to return my jacket. She dropped everything the moment she saw me, her face going pale. Oh my God, where's your inhaler? She didn't wait for an answer. She grabbed it from the counter, shook it, and pressed it to my lips. Breathe, come on, breathe. The medication hit my lungs and I gasped, coughing, trembling. Slowly, agonizingly, air returned to my chest. Maya held me while I shook, her hand rubbing circles on my back. She saved my life. My sister had left me to die. When I could finally speak again, Maya helped me to the couch. Her hands were shaking almost as badly as mine. What happened? Where's Brielle? I gestured weakly toward the hallway. She saw me. I asked for help. Maya's face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. She saw you like that and didn't help. I nodded, tears sliding down my face. Not from the asthma attack anymore, but from the crushing reality of what my sister had done. Maya stood up, her jaw set. We need to call your parents. This isn't okay. This is seriously not okay. But I knew better. I'd spent 20 years learning that when it came to Brielle, nothing was ever her fault. My name is Kendra Morrison. I'm 24 years old, and I've spent my entire life in my sister's shadow. Brielle was everything her parents wanted in a daughter. Beautiful, confident, charismatic, ambitious. She was going to be a pediatric nurse, she told everyone. She was going to help sick children and make the world better. Everyone loved her story. Meanwhile, I was the anxious one, the sensitive one, the one with asthma and allergies who always seemed to need something. Growing up, whenever I needed emotional support or validation, my parents brushed me off. Don't be so dramatic, Kendra. You're fine, stop overreacting. Why can't you be more like your sister? Brielle had learned early that she could do anything and be praised for it. The apartment we all lived in wasn't ours. It was Brielle's, a gift from her wealthy godfather Marcus on her 22nd birthday. He was a real estate developer who'd been close with our dad since college. Marcus had no children of his own and had always doted on Brielle. When she graduated college, he bought her a 3-bedroom luxury apartment in downtown Seattle overlooking Elliott Bay. My parents moved in to help her transition to adult life. I moved in because I couldn't afford anywhere else while finishing my graduate program. Brielle reminded me of this constantly. This was her space, her gift. We were all just living in her generosity. She never let me forget it. Brielle's cruelty wasn't always obvious. She was clever about it, strategic. In high school, she'd steal my homework and turn it in as her own. When I complained to our parents, she'd cry and say I was trying to sabotage her. They believed her. She'd mock my asthma in front of her friends, making wheezing sounds and pretending to gasp dramatically. Everyone laughed. I was just being too sensitive. She'd, accidentally, hide my inhalers in places I couldn't find them, then act concerned when I panicked looking for them. She sabotaged my confidence by telling me I wasn't pretty enough, smart enough, talented enough. And she humiliated me at family gatherings by sharing my most embarrassing moments as funny stories. Every injustice got worse because my parents protected her. No matter what she did, no matter how much evidence I brought them, they defended her. Brielle would never do that intentionally. You're misunderstanding her intentions. Sisters fight, it's normal. I stopped reporting her behavior by the time I was 16. What was the point? But this was different. This wasn't stealing credit or mocking me. She had literally watched me dying and walked away. Maya insisted I tell our parents immediately. I agreed. Though my stomach twisted with dread, I knew how this would go. I'd seen this movie my entire life. But Maya was right. This couldn't be ignored. This was attempted murder. Even if no one would call it that. Mom and Dad were in the living room when Maya and I walked in. Brielle had disappeared to her bedroom. I was still shaking, my breathing rough and labored. Mom looked up from her book, her expression already annoyed. Kendra, what's wrong now? I tried to keep my voice steady. I had a severe asthma attack. Brielle used the aerosol cleaner I told her I'm allergic to. When I asked for help, she refused. She watched me suffocate and walked away. For a moment, just a brief moment, shock flickered across their faces. My father actually stood up. What? That can't be right. Maya stepped forward, her voice firm. I found her turning blue on the floor. Her inhaler was right there. Brielle did nothing. The shock lasted maybe 10 seconds before the familiar patterns reasserted themselves. Mum's face softened into that expression I knew too well. The one that meant she was about to make excuses. I'm sure she didn't mean it. Mum said gently, like she was talking to a child. Your sister would never intentionally hurt you. Maybe she didn't realize how serious it was. Dad nodded quickly, eager to agree. You two need to stop this rivalry. You're sisters. You should love each other, not fight like this. Just forgive her, Kendra. I stared at them, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. She watched me dying. I was on the floor, gasping, and she told me I was faking it. Mum waved her hand dismissively. You're being dramatic. Look, you're fine now. Brielle has been under so much stress with her scholarship application and internship interviews. Maybe you caught her at a bad moment. Maya's mouth fell open. A bad moment? Mrs. Morrison, your daughter was suffocating. But my parents weren't listening anymore. They were already moving on. Already deciding this was just another case of sisterly squabbling blown out of proportion. I felt Maya's hand on my arm, grounding me. Dad looked at me with that tired expression. We're not going to make a big deal out of this. You're both adults. Work it out yourselves. That was it. No apology demanded from Brielle. No consequences. No acknowledgement that I'd almost died. Just more proof that nothing would ever change. Brielle never apologized. Not that day, not the next, not ever. She avoided me for a while. But when we did cross paths in the apartment, she acted like nothing had happened. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me with this calculating expression, like she was trying to figure out if I'd retaliate. I wouldn't. I never did. I'd spent my whole life swallowing my anger, my hurt, my rage. But something had changed after that attack. Something inside me had snapped, some fundamental belief that family meant safety. Maya noticed the change immediately. You're different, she said one evening over coffee. Quieter. I stir my latte slowly. I'm just thinking. About what? I looked at her. About surviving. She didn't press further, but I saw the concern in her eyes. Brielle's dream was finally within reach. She'd been working toward it for years, a competitive nursing scholarship that would cover her entire graduate program, plus a guaranteed internship, at Seattle Children's Hospital. It was incredibly prestigious. Hundreds of students applied every year. Only 5 were chosen. She'd been bragging about her application for months, telling everyone how perfect her credentials were, how she'd volunteer at 3 different hospitals, how she'd published research on pediatric care, how her patient feedback forms were glowing. She was going to get it, she said. She deserved it, and our parents agreed, praising her dedication and hard work. I listened to it all in silence, nodding when expected, smiling when required. But I was thinking, always thinking now. It started with a suspicion. Brielle claimed to have 200 volunteer hours at Children's Hospital, but I remember her schedule from the past year. She'd been too busy with sorority events, shopping trips, and brunch dates to spend that much time volunteering. So one afternoon, while everyone was out, I logged into her laptop. She'd never been careful about passwords. She used our childhood dog's name for everything. Her volunteer log was in her documents folder. I opened it, my heart racing. The hours were fabricated, completely fabricated. She'd listed dates she'd been on vacation in Hawaii with her friends, times she'd been at sorority formals, days she'd been shopping with Mum. She'd made up at least 60% of her volunteer hours. I kept digging. Her published research on pediatric respiratory care, the paper she presented at a regional conference, looked familiar, very familiar, because I'd written it 2 years ago for my undergraduate capstone project on asthma management in children. She'd stolen it, changed some wording, added her name, and submitted it as original work. My hands were shaking as I found more. A certification exam in advanced pediatric first aid, completed in my name, using my student ID number. She'd taken the exam pretending to be me, because she'd failed it twice under her own name. Fabricated patient feedback forms with glowing reviews from people whose names I recognized as her sorority sisters. None of them had ever been patients. All of it was fake. Then I found something else. A folder labeled references. Inside were emails from a former volunteer coordinator named Jessica Chun. Jessica had worked with Brielle at a community clinic 2 years ago. The emails told a story. Jessica had filed a complaint about Brielle's bullying behavior toward other volunteers. She documented incidents of Brielle stealing credit for others' work, belittling younger volunteers, and creating a hostile environment. The complaint had been serious enough that Brielle had been asked to leave the program. But somehow, Brielle had convinced Jessica to withdraw the complaint and write her a positive reference instead. The emails revealed why. Brielle had threatened to accuse Jessica of discrimination, to ruin her career, to make sure she never worked in healthcare again. I sat back, my heart pounding. This wasn't just padding a resume or exaggerating credentials. This was fraud, academic dishonesty, theft of intellectual property, bullying, extortion. If the scholarship committee knew any of this, Brielle would be disqualified immediately, not just from the scholarship, but potentially from any nursing program. Her entire future would collapse. I thought about that for a long time, thought about what it would mean, thought about the consequences, and then I thought about lying on her floor, gasping for air while she walked away. I opened a new folder on my laptop and started copying files. Every fabricated document, every stolen piece of work, every manipulated record. I gathered evidence methodically, carefully, with the same attention to detail Brielle should have used for her actual work. It took me 2 weeks to build a complete case. I found Jessica Chun on LinkedIn and reached out, explaining who I was and what I discovered. She was hesitant at first, afraid of retaliation. But when I told her I had proof of everything, proof that Brielle had manipulated her, she agreed to provide a statement. I contacted the conference where Brielle had presented my stolen research. I contacted the certification board about the exam fraud. I verified that the patient feedback came from people who'd never been patients at all. Every thread I pulled unraveled more lies. Brielle had built her entire impressive resume on theft, fraud, and manipulation. And I had documented all of it. Now, I just needed to decide what to do with the evidence. Maya was the only person I told. We were sitting in her apartment, my laptop open between us. The evidence files displayed on the screen. She read through everything in silence, her expression growing darker with each page. Finally, she looked up at me. This is serious, Kendra. This could destroy her entire career before it even starts. I nodded slowly. I know. Are you going to report it? I stared at the screen for a long moment. She left me to die, Maya. She's stolen from me my whole life. My work, my accomplishments, my dignity. She's never faced consequences for anything. Maya reached across and squeezed my hand. Whatever you decide, I support you. But make sure it's what you really want. I didn't rush. I thought about it for days, turning it over in my mind from every angle. Part of me was terrified. Terrified of my family's reaction, of being the bad guy, of destroying my sister's dreams. But another part of me, the part that had been suffocating my whole life, needed this. Needed to finally stand up for myself. I created an anonymous email account. I compiled all the evidence into organized folders with clear documentation, timestamps, and supporting statements from Jessica. Then I sent it to the scholarship committee, the hospital internship coordinator, the university's academic integrity board, and the nursing program director. I attached a cover letter explaining everything in calm, factual language. No emotion, no accusations beyond what the evidence proved. Just facts. I hit send and closed my laptop. The explosion happened 3 days later. I was in my room studying when I heard Brielle scream. Not a scared scream, a rage scream. She burst into the living room where Mom and Dad were watching television, her phone clutched in her hand, tears streaming down her face. They revoked it. They revoked my scholarship. Mom jumped up. What? That's impossible. Why? Brielle was sobbing hysterically. They said there were irregularities in my application. Fabricated records. They're launching an investigation. The internship pulled their offer. The nursing program is holding a disciplinary hearing. Someone reported me. Someone sent them lies about me. I stayed in my room, listening through the door, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was really happening. The house descended into chaos. Dad was on the phone with lawyers. Mom was calling the scholarship committee, demanding to speak to someone in charge. Brielle locked herself in her room, crying loud enough for everyone to hear. I emerged from my room slowly, walking into the living room where my parents were frantically trying to fix everything. Mom barely glanced at me. Not now, Kendra. Your sister's going through a crisis. I sat down on the couch. I know. I did it. The room went silent. Completely, utterly silent. Dad slowly lowered his phone. Mom turned to stare at me, like I'd just announced I was an alien. Brielle came out of her room, her face blotchy and red. What did you say? I met her eyes calmly. I reported you. I found your fabricated volunteer hours, my stolen research that you claimed is yours, the exam you took using my name, the fake patient feedback, and Jessica's statement about how you bullied her and threatened her career. I sent everything to the scholarship committee and the university. The room erupted, everyone screaming at once. My mother shrieking about betrayal. My father demanding to know how I could do this to family. Brielle lunging toward me before Dad caught her arm. But through it all I sat calmly. For the first time in my life, I felt completely certain. Everything I reported was true. I said, loud enough to cut through the chaos. Every single document is real. If it wasn't true, they wouldn't have revoked anything. Brielle's face crumpled. You ruined my life, she screamed. You jealous, pathetic. You left me to die, I said quietly. The room went silent again. You watched me suffocating on your floor, and you walked away. You told me I was faking. You've stolen from me, humiliated me, and made my life miserable for 24 years. You built your dream career on lies and theft. I just showed people the truth. My parents stared at me like they'd never seen me before. Maybe they hadn't. Maybe they'd never actually looked. I stood up. I'm moving out. Maya's letting me stay with her until I find my own place. I'm done living here. I'm done being invisible. I walked to my room, packed a bag with my essentials, and left while they were still standing there in shock. 2 months later, I was sitting in a coffee shop near Maya's apartment when my phone rang. Mom's name on the screen. I'd been ignoring their calls since I left, but something made me answer this time. Hello. Her voice was quiet, almost fragile. Can we meet? Your father and we'd like to talk. Really talk. We met at a restaurant downtown. They looked older somehow, worn down. For the first time in my life, my parents apologized. Really apologized. They admitted they'd always favored Brielle. They'd ignored how she treated me. They'd failed me as parents. They asked me to come home. I listened to all of it, and when they finished, I smiled sadly. I forgive you. But I'm not coming back. My father's face fell. Why not? Because choosing myself wasn't revenge. I said softly. It was survival. And for the first time in my life, survival feels like freedom. I finished my coffee, hugged them both, and walked out into the Seattle afternoon. Alone, but finally completely free.